Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's security is at the top of the agenda for two high-ranking US senators now in the country. It's their last stop on a tour of Indo-Pacific partners and territories. Alan Liu was at the airport when the delegation arrived and brings us this report.
Here at Taipei Songshan Airport, a highly anticipated delegation led by U.S. Senator Roger Wicker has just arrived. The head of the Senate's Armed Services Committee, Wicker is one of the fiercest advocates for Taiwan in Congress. He leads the delegation along with fellow Senator Deb Fischer. They're on a tour of partners in U.S. territories in the Indo-Pacific that included Hawaii, Guam, Palau, and the Philippines. Taiwan is their last stop. After touching down in Taipei, Wicker told local media that democracy is never fully assured without sufficient efforts to bolster defense.
We're here to talk to our friends and allies in Taiwan about what we're doing to enhance worldwide peace, the kind of peace through strength that Ronald Reagan talked about.
The senator's visit is not without its risks and challenges. It comes as the U.S. Trump administration is now focusing on reaching a trade deal with China. This reportedly led it to cancel a planned stopover in New York by Taiwan President Lai Ching-te in late July. Both the U.S. and Lai refuted those reports. China has also repeatedly made clear it opposes any form of official U.S.-Taiwan interaction, warning that its military remains on high alert. This delegation highlights that Taiwan still has the backing from some powerful corners of the Congress, a welcome reminder as China steps up pressure on the country, and amid concerns that U.S. support for Taiwan may be waning under President Donald Trump. Ryan Wu, Fu Hua Hong, David Santos, and Alan Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Vice President Bi Khim-hsiao is thanking Japan and the UK for their commitment to peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. It comes after Japan and the UK's defence ministers said they are opposed to the use of force to change the cross-strait status quo. In the same joint statement, they called for peace in the Taiwan Strait and for deeper cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. The ministers also welcomed a UK carrier strike group to Japan, where for the first time a British F-35B fighter jet landed on a Japanese carrier in a show of growing military cooperation. The Defense Ministry has released a new report that says China aims to be able to blockade the Taiwan Strait before 2035. The report says China is also aiming to modernize its military and demonstrate more strength in the Pacific. This would allow China to achieve its goal of effectively making the Taiwan Strait part of its internal waters. The Defense Ministry also says China's Belt and Road Initiative helps it forge links with Indo-Pacific countries that challenge US policy and help isolate Taiwan. The report was submitted to Taiwan's legislature for review. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is set to begin on Sunday. It comes as Chinese President Xi Jinping presses for more regional cooperation, particularly with India and Russia. The aim is to push back against the US and its allies. For more on the upcoming SCO meeting, Alec MacDonald spoke to Jia Yin-chong from the National University of Singapore.
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is set to kick off this Sunday. What can we realistically expect from the meeting?
So I think there'll be a lot of announcements to the effect that, they are for stability, they are for world peace. But I suppose beyond that, because this also dovetails with the PRC's big celebration of the victory over Japan in the Second World War. So apart from the sort of optics and the outreach elements, what we'll really have to see is what kind of follow-up that looks like. I think realistically, what we would probably be looking at is some cooperation on the economic front, maybe on the infrastructure, definitely on the energy. India is going to be buying oil from Russia. The PRC is already buying oil from Russia. Russia needs to sell that oil to fuel its war machine in Ukraine.
And with that, India's Russian oil imports will reportedly be increased in September per Reuters. So do you think that there could be additional deals between Russia and China or Russia and India at this meeting?
So I think probably there will be some discussion about how they together will withstand instability brought on by the tariffs that the Trump administration has put on. I guess what will be interesting to watch is to see whether they directly name the Trump administration or not. I guess what that will signal is the degree to which they are willing to be directly confrontational. The real thing to watch is there will be a lot of grandiose statements that will be pushed out quite a bit by a lot of these PRC media outlets and also, I guess, social media that's supportive of the PRC. And there'll be quite a lot of hay made out of it, but it's about cutting through all of that to see what really goes on, and that might take time.
One critique of the SCO and BRICS has both been that members largely deliver statements for one another without actually delivering real tangible results. Do you think that could change after this Sunday?
So the statements provide a coordinating function. So a lot of the BRICS and the SCO stuff have been statements, but where there's been follow-up is where, for instance, the PRC has been investing in rail in Central Asia. They've been doing a lot more trade and investment in Central Asia to get things like rare earths, to get things like energy. So those, I suppose, come on the heels of the SCO and BRIC stuff, basically because they sort of the leaders have set the tone, and everyone else can then sort of look at where they can follow up. So it has that function, but sort of high-end stuff that we've heard about some sort of mutual security, I don't think any of the SCO members are ready for it. Just like with BRICS, I don't think anybody's quite ready to move towards complete de-dollarization at this point.
That was Jia-Yin Chong from the National University of Singapore. China's foreign ministry is blasting Washington over proposed visa restrictions for students and journalists, calling the move discriminatory.
加强人文交流，符合两国共同利益。我们反对美方针对特定国家采取的歧视性做法。
Under Washington's proposal, visas for Chinese students would be capped at 4 years. Foreign journalists could stay for up to 240 days, except for those from China, who would be limited to 90 days before needing to reapply. The plan comes just days after US President Donald Trump faced criticism from his own supporters for saying the US would allow in 600,000 Chinese students. At least 15 people are dead in Kyiv after a fresh Russian attack. Moscow says it's ready to talk about ending its war with Ukraine, but there are some doubts about what's next for diplomacy. John Van Trieste reports.
Russian missiles and drones pounded Kyiv overnight Thursday in the deadliest attack on the city since July, part of an assault on targets across Ukraine. Ukraine says at least 15 are dead, 4 of them children. The strikes hit homes, and neighbors are left trying to dig each other out of the rubble.
The missile hit, and people were simply thrown by the impact. They were just lying there. There was a woman, a wife, and a child. The woman was under a cement block. Her head was cut, split open. She was under this block, and we weren't able to lift it. It was only lifted when the emergency services came, but she couldn't be saved.
After the sun came up, survivors packed their belongings and began to process what happened. For some who fled to Kyiv from the front line, it's yet another displacement.
I heard the sound of the impact while I was sleeping, and then I saw the window frame falling towards me.
What were you thinking at that moment?
Where my cat went.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky criticized Russia on social media, saying it's choosing to, quote, continue killing instead of ending the war. And he called on China, set to host Russian President Vladimir Putin at a military parade next week, to respond to the attack. In the European Union, this latest attack is sparking fury.
I'm outraged by the attack on Kyiv, also hitting our EU offices. This was the deadliest drone and missile attack on the capital since July. And as you can see behind me on the screen, it was an attack also on our delegation. I just spoke with our deputy ambassador, and I'm relieved that none of our staff were harmed.
But Ukraine is doing strikes of its own, targeting a pillar of the Russian economy, oil. A drone strike hit this refinery in Samara, hundreds of kilometers from the Ukrainian border. From Moscow, views of Thursday's attack are quite different. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says Russia doesn't deliberately attack civilian targets. It says Ukraine is hitting civilian infrastructure in Russia, too. And Peskov says Russia's still ready to talk.
The strikes are successful, the targets are being destroyed, and the special military operation continues. At the same time, Russia remains interested in continuing the negotiation process in order to achieve our goals through political and diplomatic means.
But the attack could complicate any talks. In Europe, at least, there's some skepticism of progress. U.S. President Donald Trump has pushed for Zelensky and Putin to meet face-to-face. But German Chancellor Friedrich Merz now says it's obvious such a meeting won't happen. For now, the question of what Thursday's attack means for diplomacy is one that's too early to answer. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's cabinet has proposed a new draft law that would govern the development of AI. The Artificial Intelligence Basic Act would establish a set of regulations and basic principles with the goal of turning Taiwan into an AI island. The bill would also task the government with promoting AI research and infrastructure development, as well as offering subsidies and tax incentives. But the draft bill does not say which governmental bodies would be responsible.
因为这个 AI 是跟所有的部会都会有关系，那所以不需要明定一个主管机关，因为定了一个主管机关反而会限缩这个范围。那些比较细节的事情，我们会交由各个部会然后分别定各种不同的作用法，因为现在 AI 的那个变化太快了
The bill has been submitted to the legislature for review. Scientists have found an unexpected way of fighting methane emissions from cattle farming, which is a major source of this greenhouse gas. As John Van Trieste reports, the solution comes from under the sea.
These flasks of goopy algae are part of a breakthrough in the fight against greenhouse gas emissions. Researchers at Taiwan's Fisheries Research Institute have found that adding small amounts of the algae genus Asparagopsis into cattle feed can cut the methane that cows emit by over 90%. The secret is in the way it alters cows' gut flora, as one researcher explains.
海门冬呢，它最主要的这个抑制甲烷的这个主成分，溴仿的一个主要成分，它可以去使这个瘤胃的菌相是比较趋向于降低甲烷的这个菌相的生成。
The trouble with research into this algae so far is that there isn't much of it around Taiwan. It can be found in some nearby waters, but it tends to disappear in summer. And it's taken several years of lab work to figure out how to grow the algae in the quantities needed for cattle feed on a mass scale. The trick was finding a way to get the algae to thrive, despite competition from many rival species.
会有对应的一个纯化培养的一个方式去把它做这个汰除，最后只保留我们要的这个丝分孢子体，让它在这里面是占据优势的。
And this is more than a scientific breakthrough. It's a business opportunity. Methane is the second most emitted greenhouse gas, and cattle farming is a major source of it. The industry looks forward to using cattle feed with algae to cut emissions. They can then market milk, for instance, as a low methane product.
甲烷的排放量一直是一个蛮大的一个痛点，能够大量的减低这个碳排放量的时候，都是非常一个令人振奋的消息。
The market for fighting methane from cattle farming is now worth $3 billion worldwide. And right now, there are only 7 companies with the tech needed to do the job. Now, Taiwan could soon be home to an 8th. Howard Zhang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Taipei Zoo, where they've successfully bred these blue-tailed bee-eaters for the first time. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.